what I ought to do is I ought to have the people read what they wrote to me here while they,
Yeah, yeah.
Eric,
That
come
would
on,
be
yeah.
nice.
okay?
Let's start with Dick Ruhe since his was the
Yes,
longest.
okay.
65 has learned much from Les and Carol High. Each of us has different needs and chose different lessons at different times of our careers. But being around Les, you couldn't possibly miss the tsunami of wisdom.
I love that
was-
term.
that he offered.
Tsunami
Listen to that, listen to that. Isn't that a phenomenal statement?
You're telling me he's all wet.
Yeah, that was my intention. Okay, so you couldn't possibly miss the tsunami of wisdom that he offered. It has always been there for the taking. We all would eventually figure it out later when everything started to make sense. His lessons weren't merely preached, Les role modeled them, but we had a long way to go. So early on he set expectations, take class meetings. When he strode into McAllister Auditorium right on schedule to the second, he set a high standard of professional decorum. This was the beginning of learning that it was important to do everything right. We already knew not to do anything wrong, but we had to also accept that good enough wasn't good enough. Early on, we didn't really get it that Coast Guard people could die if they didn't do it exactly right. But Les got it, and he shared what he knew with us. As the class developed in leadership, he made himself available to meet our needs. It didn't matter when we scheduled it, early or late. Who knows how many times he inconvenienced himself and Carol and his family to make that happen. During the 70s, as his influence continued to expand, he regularly traveled up to CGA to speak to faculty, staff, and cadets. He did that to stay in touch and to share the big picture. He made waves sometimes. One of the messages he delivered was that OCS was providing really outstanding officers and they were very competitive. That was a little tough to appreciate given all the differences between the two sources. But over time we came to see the OCS grads. We should have known they were good, very good. Les was involved. When he created the major shift in Coast Guard training its own people, we found that we could do it better than our sister services. The Coast Guard just needed the vision, and Les provided that vision. Then all we needed was the resources. Les got the resources. Actually, that's not quite right. The people who worked for and with Les did it. That's what made the whole thing work. He told everybody the what. He didn't meddle with the how. That was up to them. Leadership is a combination of strategy and heart. Les gave us his heart. In September 2016, we saw yet another indication of his influence when he was inducted into the Coast Guard Aviation Hall of Honor. You only need a walking tour of Mobile F-Tracen to appreciate Les's long-term impact. You can palpably feel his presence and legacy. There is an old saw about indispensable people and organizations. It's that there shouldn't be any, because after all, any necessary absence of a critical person would make it impossible to execute the task. That makes sense. But in the case of Les High, we have to make an exception to the rule. We needed him way back when. Without him, 65 wouldn't be who we are today. Neither would the Coast Guard.
Thank you very much.